In astrology, the sixth house holds the key to living well and creating healthy habits. It is the house of health and the house of illness. Alongside the moon, the sixth house shows us important information about our eating habits, food preferences, and nutritional needs. Alongside Mars, the sixth house also provides insight into the best types of exercise and movement for our bodies and exactly what we need to stay motivated. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know to start understanding your sixth house, including actionable, usable information that you can begin implementing right away to improve your own health and well-being. And the best part of it is I'm going to be breaking this down by rising sign, so no complex chart calculations will be needed for this video. For those who are looking for a deeper understanding, not just of the sixth house, but all of the astrological houses, I have a free gift for you. I have unlocked 10-day access to the entire module on the 12 houses from my Cosmic Academy of Astrology. My free gift to you, link is down in the description below. The Cosmic Academy of Astrology is the place for astrologers who are tired of sifting through piles of disorganized, disconnected information about astrology through YouTube and books, only to be left frustrated and confused when they go to give a reading. In the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, I provide a detailed, structured, comprehensive approach to learning astrology where we layer information step by step from the ground up and integrate what we're learning every single step of the way to form your own interpretations. It's where education meets action, meets support, meets mentorship, meets community. The Cosmic Academy of Astrology has everything that you need in order to learn to give meaningful, accurate astrology readings and make predictions with confidence. And again, you can have a 10-day free trial access to the Academy to see what we're all about. The link is down in the description below, and learn all about the 12 houses. So before we move ahead to the meat of this video, the important information that you came here to understand about the sixth house and medical astrology, I wanted to state a couple of things just for the record and just to kind of help you see where we're going to be going with this video. So first and foremost, diet and exercise can be a very personal thing and a very touchy subject. It is my belief that there is no one specific diet or exercise program that works for every single person across the board. We are all unique individuals with unique psychological and physiological makeups, and the astrology reflects this. The astrology also reflects that we all have unique nutritional and dietary and exercise and health needs overall. And so that's my approach to medical astrology. That's my approach to this video here. And so we're going to be talking about different foods and nutrition and exercises and correspondences to things in the birth chart. But this isn't the be-all end-all. This is a very complicated topic that we really need to look at the whole chart and a lot of different things in the chart to understand. And when we look at these correspondences, they are going to include things like the correspondences between fire energy or Mars and meat. If this is something that offends you or upsets you and you know you're not going to be able to listen, that's okay. This is where you turn off the video and go back to your day. For everyone else, there are a few things that you need to understand about the birth chart and a few additional areas of the birth chart you're going to want to look at in addition to what I'm teaching you today in this video in order to get a more holistic understanding of your overall picture of health, your constitution, and your exercise, diet, and health needs in general. And so the first things first, you're going to want to look at not just your sixth house, but your first house, the ascendant and the ascendant ruler, so the planet that rules the sign of your ascendant. These energies are so important to understanding you and your physical body because they rule you and your physical body. They are you in physical form. You're also, of course, going to want to look at your moon because that's the general significator of the body in astrology, especially in traditional astrology. Another thing you might want to look at is your sun, because the sun is not just the soul's expression of physicality in this reality, but it's also your vitality, your life force energy. And of course, that's so important when you're evaluating health and wellness. Other things you might want to look at, especially when it comes to habits that impact your body and your mind and your overall health and well-being, are the moon, which has to do with your emotional well-being, but also has to do with food preferences and food habits, and a lot of times the dietary habits that are not so good. The other thing you're going to want to look at is, of course, Mars, because Mars rules physical action and activity. It rules our muscles in the way that we use them. And so that's going to be important to take into consideration in addition to the 6th house when it comes to health habits and routines. Finally, you're going to want to look at the Lot of Fortune, which is a specific calculation that is utilized for predictions involving health. You're going to want to look at the 8th house, which is your psychological well-being. It has to do with trauma, which can be at the core of a lot of physiological issues. We know today through modern science and modern research that experiencing a lot of trauma, experiencing a lot of really intense situations, especially early in life, can be a predictor of both physiological and psychological illness later on down the line. And so the 8th house should not be ignored. And then finally, the 12th house, because the 12th house runs on an axis with the 6th house, and it is the house of rest and sleep and restoration. So of course, you're going to want to look there too. In terms of the 6th house, you're not going to just want to look at what we're talking about here today. This is just the beginning. This is just the stepping stone. And so you're going to want to look at not just the sign occupying the 6th, which we'll cover, but you're going to want to look to see if there are any planets in the 6th house and what those planets signify. You're also going to want to look at the sign that occupies the 6th house and what planet rules that sign. The planet that rules that sign is your 6th house ruler, and its placement tells an additional layer of really important information that should not be ignored. If you're really interested in diving deep into medical astrology, I do have a course for that, my Medical Astrology Foundations course. You can jump on the wait list for our next enrollment period. We only open enrollment twice per year. The next time at the time of this recording of this video will be January of 2024. And so make sure you get on the wait list to be notified if you're super interested in medical astrology. For the record, I am not a doctor. You guys probably already know that, but I'm also not a nutritionist. I am not a physical trainer. My background is in clinical psychology. I have a master's degree. I also have additional certification in integrative yoga therapy, trauma-informed yoga therapy, and additional training in herbalism. I am not a doctor. So if you are interested in engaging in a new healthcare program, if you're going to be changing your diet, if you're going to be starting a new exercise routine, you should always consult your physician first. And if you are experiencing a specific psychological or physiological health issue, of course you should consult your doctor. And so I want to state that for the record before we move on, that you should definitely consult the experts before you do anything. And this video is just for educational purposes only, so you can understand some of the traditional significations of the astrology of the 6th house and how that connects to you and the way that you live your life and live well in order to maintain and achieve optimal wellness. I also wanted to mention that for the purpose of this video, we're going to be using whole sign houses. Now, you're welcome to use whatever house system is your preference, to each his own, but I will not be answering questions about Placidus or other quadrant house systems and the 6th house down in the comments below. And so without further ado, let's get into it. Now for Aries rising, you guys are going to have a Virgo 6th house. And so this indicates that not only do you have the ability to be motivated to do a lot of physical activity, and you need a lot of physical activity, you're probably somebody who actually does care a lot about your health. Virgo 6th house people can be picky eaters. They can be very meticulous about what they're eating, what they're putting into their body, ingredients to things, and they can have a lot of very specific dietary restrictions and dietary preferences. With Virgo in the 6th house, you need a lot of really good quality, nutrient-dense foods, especially when it comes to mineral content. All of the earth signs need this. Because you are a mutable sign, variety is key, and constantly changing and adapting your nutritional needs to what your body wants and is saying to you in the moment is going to be very important as well. Virgo 6th house people do tend to take a lot of supplements. They tend to be very interested in herbs and supplementation and things like that. And that can actually be very helpful so long as you don't become obsessive over it. And for people who have Virgo in the 6th house, exercise not only has to be very intense physically, because you do have that Aries rising, you do need a lot of physical exertion, your body needs to move, but it has to be purposeful. And so a lot of times people who have Virgo in the 6th house, depending on what their Mars is doing, but when they have Virgo in their 6th house, they're going to do whatever diet or whatever exercise program is best for their body based on their own research. And so when you exercise, it's intentional. You do the types of exercise that you know and that you feel are going to give you the most bang for your buck when it comes to health benefits. And because, again, of that mutable energy, you have to be able to change and adapt and grow and do different types of exercise as you feel that you need to in the moment based on what your body needs in that moment. Aries rising Virgo 6th house people typically do kind of eat on the go. They will plan their meals sometimes to make sure that it's healthy and that it's good for them, but they tend to prefer lighter, more frequent meals as opposed to one big heavy meal or multiple bigger, heavier meals throughout the day. Another thing is that they typically are good to sticking to diet and exercise programs because of that very strong-willed Aries 1st house active energy, but also that 6th house energy of Virgo that indicates that you really do care for your health and you really do think about these things. The final thing I'll say about Aries rising people with Virgo in the 6th house is that they tend to have a lot of energy and they tend to have a lot of nervous, unsettled energy. And so they burn through energy quite quickly. That's probably part of the reason why they're constantly eating little things throughout the day. But you know, they could also use like good quality, slow burning foods. And so that's what's going on for Aries rising. If you're a Taurus rising, your 6th house will be occupied by Libra. And because in typical Libra fashion, this is all about balance and harmony, homeostasis and balance in the body requires a balanced diet, and it also requires balance between working out and taking an activity and rest and relaxation. So making sure you're not doing too much or too little. You need to have just as much rest as you do activity and exercise. Because this is a Venus-ruled sign and because your ascendant is a Venus-ruled sign, people with Libra in the 6th house tend to have a bit of a sweet tooth, and that can work to your disadvantage. And so you want to kind of make sure that you're aware of that and that you limit sweets and sugars as much as you can, because you're likely getting too many of these things, too many sweets, too much sugar in your diet if you have these placements. I will also say that this is one of the lazier configurations because you have this Taurus energy, which is very driven toward comfort, toward ease, toward things that feel really good in the moment. And then you have this Libra energy as well. And they're both Venusian. They're both kind of relaxed energies. And so they can be very relaxed when it comes to their dietary choices and the food that they put into their body. And they can be very relaxed when it comes to movement and exercise. And so they need an extra push or extra motivation unless there's something else in their chart that indicates otherwise. People with Libra in the 6th house do best working in partnership with somebody else toward their long-term health and diet and exercise and nutrition goals. And so somebody who has the 6th house with Libra would work best in partnership with somebody. So buddy up with somebody who has similar goals. Work one-on-one with a nutritionist. Work one-on-one with a health coach. Work one-on-one with a physical trainer. That social aspect, that accountability through that partnership and that reflection on you that you're going to get through that partnership, that is going to be crucial in helping you to maintain your health. For people who have this placement, food is a more social thing as opposed to the Aries rising people, where food is more about fueling your body. For people who have Taurus rising and Libra 6th house placements, food is more about connecting with people and getting to know someone on a deeper level. It's an intimate act, right, to dine with somebody. And so that social aspect of eating is just as important as the food itself, and making sure that you're in good company and in good spirits when you're going about your food and your eating and your meal times. And the same thing goes for exercise. And so exercise can be made a partner activity. Go for a walk with someone you love, take a class for exercise with your best friend, or hire a coach or somebody who can keep you accountable. If your rising sign is Gemini, then your 6th house will be occupied by Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of detoxification. And so detox is actually really important for people who have Gemini rising and Scorpio in the 6th house. It's kind of a buzzword nowadays, and it's kind of trendy to talk about detox, but these are people that do need to make sure that they're incorporating detoxifying foods and supplements and herbs and different things into their diet and into their routines. And you really need to make sure that you're moving your body, because things can become very stuck and very stagnant in the body when you're not moving physically. Although for Scorpio 6th house people, they do tend to get enough movement. It just comes in very intense bursts. And because of that Gemini energy, you have to constantly be switching it up and doing things that you feel really excited about or passionate about, or that you can obsess over in the moment when it comes to physical activity. But as a Mars ruled sign in the 6th house, generally, Gemini rising people are a little bit more active. They don't tend to hold on to a lot of excess weight. And part of the reason for that is because they are more active. They do, tend to move a lot, and they tend to fidget and move a lot in their day-to-day life. But also they have a really great way of understanding hunger and satiety cues. And they tend to just eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full. When a Gemini rising person, Scorpio 6th house person is hungry, they're going to eat when they want to eat. They don't want to wait for somebody else. Even though it's a social sign, they'd rather eat alone with that Gemini rising and eat when they're hungry and eat what they want and what their body needs in that moment than have to follow somebody else's schedule or somebody else's cues. And that's very important for Gemini rising people. And especially if you're a parent of a Gemini rising child, throwing off their hunger and satiety cues and not allowing them to choose when they eat and how much they eat and when they're full, that's going to throw them really off kilter later on down the line. And so it's just something important to make note of. This social energy of the Gemini rising mixed with the Scorpio energy does make them more prone to drinking alcohol with meals. It's that Mars too. Mars tends to be very connected to drinking in medical astrology. You think it's going to be Neptune. Yes, that's part of it, but Mars tends to be a strong player in alcoholism or in people that just drink a lot. And so we're not going to get into that. That's a tangent here. But when it comes to Scorpio, they do tend to, want to drink, or they're more likely to drink with meals. And so that's one of the things that you might need to watch with Gemini rising people, especially in social situations. When it comes to exercise, they will exercise very intensely sometimes when they need to, and they prefer to exercise solo. So again, even though that Gemini rising is a social sign, their dietary habits, their exercise routines are very much a solo activity. It's all about what they feel really pulled toward and really obsessed with, and like they really want to do in that moment. And you kind of have to let them roll with it. Usually they'll do a pretty good job, unless there's other indicators in their chart that they won't. For Cancer risings, so Cancer risings will have a Sagittarius 6th house, and oh my goodness, are these big eaters. Cancer rising people love, love, love food, not just because they're a Cancer rising, but because of that Jupiter-ruled Sagittarius 6th house placement. These are people that need warm foods, and that can actually help a lot with that watery Cancerian energy. So when I say warm, I don't just mean like warm physically, although I do mean that too. They prefer foods often that are warm or that are heated up or that are cooked in some way, but also they need foods that are spicy and that are exotic and that are fun for them to eat. Otherwise, they're not going to stick to any sort of diet or nutritional routine. They have to have that excitement. They have to experience different cultures through their taste, through their food. Food for them is experiential. It's not just about eating. It's about connecting with people on that emotional level that support that Cancerian energy, but it's also a bit of an adventure. And so Cancer needs that variety. Cancer loves foreign foods for Cancer rising people. And they also, they do have a big appetite. And so that's one of the things being a Jupiter ruled 6th house, is that they can overeat or overconsume, and they can get caught up in the moment and overindulge, especially if they're just out having a good time, or if what they're doing is really fun. They're not really paying attention to what they're eating or how much they're putting into their body. And so that's something that they might need to watch. They do need very good quality bioavailable protein. All fire sign sixth houses need this. Fire sign ascendants need this too, but especially if you have fire in the sixth house, you need good quality protein. And often for the fire sixth house signs, that does mean meat. I'm not saying that everyone who has this placement has to eat meat. You have to do what's best for your body. You have to look at the whole chart, but by and large, this is just what I see with my clients and my students, and in general, that's the signification. This is also where physical activity has to be an adventure. And so it's very important, first and foremost, that these people are physically active. They have a fire sixth house. They have that watery ascendant, which can make them very sluggish, especially with Cancer. And so they need to move their bodies, but movement needs to feel like an adventure. They need to do things that are exciting and adventurous while they're moving about. And so things like going rock climbing, things like going on a really adventurous 3-day hike or something like that, where they're going through, the forest and they're seeing and doing different things. They need activity that feels exciting and feels adventurous to them. And so that's how you're going to keep a Cancer rising Sagittarius first or sixth house person motivated to stay active. So wilderness activities and adventure. So for Leo rising, you're going to have Capricorn occupying your sixth house. And so Capricorn sixth house people, I should say, prefer actually cold foods. So foods that are not heated up, things like smoothies, salads, ice cream. Not that you should be indulging in piles and piles of ice cream, but these things are just more appealing. And when I say cooling foods, I don't just mean foods that are physically cool. I mean foods and herbs and supplements and things like that that are cooling, which, depending on the rest of your chart and your overall constitution, could be very good for you as a fire rising sign. Because you are a Capricorn sixth house placement, you're not as likely to overeat as a lot of the other signs because of that restrictive energy of Saturn and that Capricorn energy. You're very good at sticking to very regimented, very disciplined diet and exercise programs. You don't wait for motivation to act. You don't wait for motivation to eat healthy. You don't wait for motivation to exercise. You do it because it's what you're supposed to do. You do it because you know that there are going to be long-term benefits. Even if it feels uncomfortable in the moment, you know that later on you're going to thank yourself. And so that's why Leo rising people are very good at sticking to regimented programs. They need structure and routine when it comes to what they eat, when they eat it, why they eat it, and also when it comes to exercise. So taking a regular exercise class, enrolling in some sort of regular disciplined exercise program, these things are excellent for Leo rising people. Because you're a Leo rising, you also need, again, good quality bioavailable protein. You burn through energy more quickly as a Leo rising sign. And with Capricorn, you need a lot of minerals. So minerals are so important for the earth signs, but especially for Capricorn. And for Capricorn, calcium can actually be extra important because of that Saturnian component. The final thing I'll say about Capricorn is that they like movement that checks multiple boxes. And so if you have a Capricorn sixth house, you might like physical activity that also gets tasks accomplished. So like yard work or housework or building something with your muscles and with your body can be a great way to break out of the mundane routine, like I need to do this many reps of this many things for this reason, and to move your body in a way that just feels good and comes naturally to you. And then for Virgo rising, your sixth house will be occupied by Aquarius. Virgo rising people are very health conscious, but they tend to have very unusual ideas about health and nutrition. And a lot of times their health and nutrition ideas, the health and nutrition programs that they follow tend to be a little bit ahead of their time, where in the moment people are like, what the heck are you doing? And then 10 years later, people find out, oh, this is actually really good for you, or it becomes some sort of diet or exercise fad or trend. Virgo on the ascendant is usually ahead of its time when it comes to health, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to caring for and healing the physical body. And that's not just because they're Virgos and they care so much about health, that's part of it. It's also because of that Aquarius energy in the sixth house, where they're open to things that are different, that are unusual, and they tend to be very innovative and ahead of their time. This is also a really great energy for using technology to your advantage when it comes to your health. So things like biohacking, for lack of a better term, or using different wearable devices to track your biometrics. Like I use an Aura ring. I'm a Virgo sun though. To track, my activity, my sleep, my heart rate variability, to see how my nervous system is doing, all of those things. That's something that a Virgo rising person would absolutely love because of that 6th house energy and that connection between technology, innovation, and health. Because they are an air sign 6th house, and especially because they're an Aquarius 6th house, and Aquarius rules electrics and electrical frequencies throughout the body, and electromagnetic frequencies in general are very Aquarian and very Uranian. They are more sensitive to EMF radiation. They need to actually take time away from their technology more so than some of the other rising signs, because they are influenced and affected by it in ways that other people might not be, or in ways that we might not fully understand or see, even with our modern, scientific data that we have on these things. And so, for Virgo rising people, turning off your Wi-Fi at night or hardwiring all of your computers and things like that, like we do at our home, making sure that your phone is on airplane mode or in some sort of safe container where it's not emitting EMF radiation and stuck next to your body. All of these things are so important. Maybe not living right next to a cell phone tower, which no one should do anyway. Like, all of these things are extra important for Virgo risings. And when it comes to exercise, this is a great placement for group exercise programs. They love to go to classes and like go to a yoga class or a Pilates class or a karate class or whatever it is that you're interested in. They like to do things that are constantly changing and shifting, where they're learning new things and having to kind of adapt in the moment. And they really like to try new and innovative forms of movement. For Libra rising people, Pisces occupies your 6th house, and this is not the easiest placement for health, and especially not the easiest placement for sticking to any sort of restrictive or strict diet or exercise routine, because you need variety, you need flexibility, and you need a spiritual connection to the exercise that you're doing, to the things that you're doing in your day-to-day life. In fact, your spiritual well-being and your spiritual practices on a day-to-day basis will do a lot more for your health than, doing this many reps of that many exercises or whatever it is that you feel like you should be doing because society says so. That being said, you do need to ground your energy a little bit when it comes to health. This can be the top sign placement, the top energy when it comes to the rising signs, for indulging in food as a means to escape from reality. This can also be a sign of indulging in mind-altering substances like alcohol or drugs on a day-to-day basis, again, in order to escape from everyday normal reality. And so you have to work a little bit harder to ground yourself and to stick to a diet or exercise routine, or at the very least to eat something healthy, because you're going to be moved to eat whatever you feel like eating in the moment. It could be actually beneficial for you to eat intuitively, or to learn something like kinesiological muscle testing to figure out which foods energetically are going to be best for you in the moment, in order to make sure that you're getting your nutritional needs met without having to stick to something that's very regimented or very restrictive in some way. It's not necessarily for you, it's not so much about the facts and the figures and the numbers and the macros and the micronutrients and all of that. It's more about what you feel like your body needs in that moment, and kind of following that and following your intuition and judgment. That's not to say that you should use your intuition as an excuse to say that I feel like my body needs a giant chocolate cake in this moment. So, you do have to kind of be realistic about this and use your logic and discernment as well. And for people who have this placement, if they are like overly concerned with diet, it's usually for appearance reasons with that Libra rising energy, as opposed to being for, health reasons, or for wanting to make sure the nutritional needs are met in some way. As I mentioned before, their emotional and spiritual health is going to be very crucial when it comes to creating good building blocks for their physical health. And the same thing can be said for exercise. Exercise for people who have Libra rising and Pisces in the 6th house should be connected to some sort of spiritual reason, some sort of spiritual activity. So things like yoga, things like Tai Chi, things like meditation or movement meditation, things like dance, things that are flowy and creative that involve movement are going to appeal to a Libra rising person way more so than, you know, doing something that's really disciplined and really regimented. And they're going to stick to something like that way more so than they are something that doesn't fit with their 6th house needs. For Scorpio rising, Aries is going to be in your 6th house, and Scorpio rising people do tend to be more physically active, but they have to feel very passionate or very excited or very motivated about the type of activity that they're going to be doing in that moment. They do better with quick bursts of intense physical activity as opposed to doing something for a really long time, like long distance running or something like that. They get bored easily with doing the same thing for too long, and they do better with a lot of intensity up front and then, you know, moving on when they're done with expressing that energy. When they have a lot of energy to express, when they have a lot of physical energy surging through their bodies, they need to move in that moment, and they're not going to be waiting for somebody else's cue, or they're not going to be sticking to a specific like time frame or timeline that's dictated by somebody else. When the energy's there, they use it, and when it's not, they don't. They're very good at regulating their energy in that way. And they do need a lot of physical activity because of that 6th house energy. If a Scorpio rising person is not moving their body on a daily basis, that is not a healthy Scorpio rising person. And so that is absolutely key. When it comes to food, this is the sign, you guys. Scorpio rising is the sign that needs good quality protein, and especially they do best with animal protein and with organ meats. I'm sorry to say, I know some of you are going to get super upset with me in the comments. I might have been one of you a while ago as a Scorpio rising, because I was a vegetarian for about 10 years and that did nothing for my health. In fact, it kind of ruined my health. And then when I started actually eating to my birth chart and incorporating really good quality, you know, very humanely raised, very healthy animal products into my diet, I started to see a huge increase in my energy and a huge shift in my health. And so I always say for people who have that Aries 6th house that you need good quality protein. And if it's not animal protein, you got to talk to a nutritionist, you guys. If you're a vegan with a Scorpio rising, you need to talk to a nutritionist who specializes in vegan diets and can make sure that you're getting what you need, because you burn through energy quickly and you need so much protein. Like, this is a protein sign. That's just the way that it is. Also, people who have Scorpio rising and Aries in their 6th house, they like their food to be physically hot. Not just like spicy, that can be part of it too, but physically they want it to be warm to the point where it's hot or scalding sometimes. They prefer warm foods, and they tend to do really well actually with warm foods too. And so that can be very helpful. You might not want to add too much spice because of that Aries. It could be like inflammatory or a little bit too much, but that warmness is something that they enjoy. This is another sign that's going to eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full. They're going to eat what they want when they want to in the moment, and then they're going to stop. They don't tend to be overweight because they do tend to have a really good handle on hunger and satiety cues, just like Scorpio being in the 6th house. And they eat though with a sense of urgency. So people who have Scorpio rising and Aries 6th house, they do need to learn to slow down and chew their food. Your saliva, your mouth, all of that is part of your digestive system, and they do tend to eat very fast because they're rushing through. Like, eating food for people who have this combination, unless otherwise indicated, is a means to an end. It's just about fueling your body, getting your energy back up, and going back about your day. And so they tend to rush through meals, and that's not good for digestion, and that can be a little off-putting to people too. So you want to make sure that you're slowing down and taking your time with things. When it comes to physical activity, like I said, short bursts and really intense physical activity, also things that really use your muscles. So like strength training or strengthening exercises can be really good for Scorpio rising, Aries 6th house people. Sagittarius rising people have a Taurus 6th house, and they tend to have a quite strong constitution with this combination. It tends to be that they can get away with putting their body through a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they should. Also, for this placement with Taurus ruling food and ruling that sensory experience of food, food choices are absolutely critical to the health of a Sagittarius rising. Sagittarius rising people, just like Taurus rising people, can be a little overindulgent when it comes to their eating habits and their food choices. And so that's something that you also have to kind of make note of. So they tend to have big appetites. They burn through energy quickly, so as long as they are physically active and engaging in their fire nature and moving their bodies a lot throughout the day, again, they might need that fuel. They might be able to get away with it, but this is something that requires a little bit of a handle on, right? You need to pay attention to the amount, the quantity of food, because this is a sign that tends to ignore their satiety cues. They tend to overeat and overindulge. They really like good quality food with good quality ingredients. Food for them is about the sensory experience, the experience of tasting. They eat very slowly. They like to savor every single bite. It's about really tasting and really experiencing their food for a Sagittarius rising person. Because of this, they're not going to eat things that taste bad. They're not going to eat things just to eat them. They're not going to eat things just because they're healthy for them. They're not going to drink a bunch of like green whatever because it's good for them even if it tastes bad. And so you need to make sure that their food feels indulgent even if it's not. Even if it's like good, healthy, whatever, you need to make sure that it feels indulgent. It feels nourishing and comforting, and it feels like they're getting something that's a treat, even if it's not necessarily a treat. This is a sign that can be slow to get moving when it comes to physical activity, but once they are moving, once that momentum is going, they're going to continue to go and go and go and go until whatever the thing that they're doing is done. So when they get into physical activity, once they get in motion, they're going to stay in motion to the point of wearing themselves out sometimes. So once you get them moving, that's the whole issue, is like motivating a Taurus 6th house person to actually move their body and to actually do things. Taurus 6th house people do best with movement that is practical or that is connected to nature in some way, because that's Taurus. So, gardening, farming, working with your hands in the soil, going for a hike in nature. All of these things are beautiful for Sagittarius rising people and can really get them motivated. And once they're there, once they're doing it, they're going to keep going for hours. So Capricorn rising people are going to have a Gemini 6th house placement. And with this Gemini 6th house, food and mealtime are social activities. They're going to do best when they're eating with people. Their company that they surround themselves with, the conversation at mealtime, is just as important to their health and to their digestion as the food itself. They need to be in community when they eat. They need to be in collaboration with others when it comes to sticking to a healthy routine. If the people around them are not eating healthy, they're going to go with the crowd because they're going to just be doing it because it's part of the experience, it's part of the social activity. And so making sure that your friends, that your family, that the people that you're dining with are on the same page is going to be very helpful. Or joining some sort of group or organization that helps support each other when it comes to health, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to diet. This is another one where physical fitness is best done in groups or with friends. It's a social activity. So for you, movement needs to be fun. It needs to be social. And so going out to like an exercise class with your closest friends and then getting brunch afterward, that would be a really great thing to motivate a Capricorn rising person to keep active and to do, physical activity. Another thing too is that they need a lot of variety. So even though they have that Capricornian energy on the ascendant and they can stick to things and they can do things that are regimented, they're not going to enjoy it as much as they are if they get to do a lot of different things. They need to be able to switch it up. So doing one type of exercise every single time, or like one type of movement, that's not going to work for a Gemini 6th house person. You want to make sure that you have a lot of different things that you can pull from and you can switch it up to keep yourself interested and excited and engaged with your physical activity. Same thing with food. So in addition to needing to be social and, that social aspect of eating, that Gemini energy in the 6th house indicates that you like a lot of variety. This is like eating a lot of different tastes all in one meal, like going to like a tapas restaurant or something like that, or eating a lot of different snacks. So making sure that your meals, even though they're healthy and they're good for you, they have a lot of different tastes and a lot of different variety. So that way you're getting to try a lot of things that's going to keep you engaged with eating healthy. If you're an Aquarius rising, then you have a Cancer 6th house. Cancer 6th house people tend to be indulgent eaters who love home-cooked meals and comfort foods. Your emotional state when you're eating is so important. It's almost as important as the food itself. Aquarius rising people should never eat when they are in a negative emotional state. They're going to not digest their food well, and nobody does when they're in a negative emotional state, but especially for Aquarius. Also, your emotions and your emotional well-being is so important to your physical well-being. They're one and the same. And so you want to make sure that you're taking care of your emotional health and your emotional needs, and that you have a really good emotional support system. Eating with family and eating home-cooked meals, or eating with people that you care about, is important to you as well. And so you want to make sure that your family and that your support system are a part of your healthy habits and your nutritional habits, that they're on board with what you're doing and how you're doing it. This is a really great sign for cooking and cooking your own food. And so incorporating cooking, incorporating creating food as part of your healthy routine and making it fun for you in that way can be very helpful in eating the right things. So incorporating the right things into the food because you're cooking it and because you're finding creative ways to incorporate healthy ingredients into foods that feel indulgent, that feel like comfort foods. That can be one of the best ways for an Aquarius rising person to support themselves nutritionally. Emotional stress for people who have Aquarius rising can cause upset stomach, it can cause poor digestion, it can cause bloating, it can cause all sorts of issues. And so again, making sure that your emotions are in check before you eat is going to be key. Also, with Aquarius rising people, they eat what they feel like in the moment. And so eating intuitively can be helpful, but making sure that you're actually eating intuitively and not eating based on what your emotions are in that moment. And the same thing with exercise. They tend to kind of cycle through exercise routines. They don't stick with anything for a long time, or they'll come back to it over and over again, kind of in this cyclical, habitual way, but it won't necessarily be consistent. Again, it's because they have to feel like it in the moment. And so in order to stick with movement and exercise and doing the things that are healthy for your body, you have to shift your emotions before you do it. Don't wait for your emotions to be in the right place to act and to exercise and to do the things that are good for your body. Instead, learn to shift and control your emotions through meditation, through visualization practices, through also, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, you guys. But once you're more in control of your emotions, you're going to be better in control of your diet and exercise routines, and you're going to be able to shift yourself into the emotional state that you need to be in to make good, healthy choices, to move your body when you need to move it. Because this is a Cancer energy and this is a water sign, movement in water can be excellent for Aquarius rising people. And so swimming, right, can be great. So doing something where you're by a lake or in a body of water, that can be wonderful for your health. And it's something that can motivate you to actually want to move and exercise. And then for Pisces rising, your 6th house is going to be occupied by Leo. Like all of the fire signs, you need good quality protein, you burn through energy quickly, you like your foods to be warm, like physically warm, but this is also a sign that likes lavish, expertly prepared, beautiful meals. So dining is about the experience, it's about the theatrics, it's about the display as much as it is about the food itself. This is a sign that loves to go to fancy restaurants. This is a sign that likes the presentation to be over the top and extravagant. This is the sign that likes to be entertained with their food, entertained with their meals. And so incorporating these things into a healthy eating plan is going to help you to to stick with it. Not just saying that I can only eat at home and I have to eat these foods in this way, but allowing yourself the indulgence of going out to eat at a restaurant and eating mindfully eating, and not overeating, but mindfully eating, like expertly prepared, like lavish, beautiful meals, dinner and a show, you know, allowing yourself that is going to give you the strength and the motivation you need to eat right the rest of the time, and even make healthy choices while you're out to eat. That can certainly be a part of it too. This is another one that tends to indulge in alcohol, and so making sure that you're aware that you're prone to indulging in alcohol with meals. Part of that could be because you're, you know, looking at meals and mealtime as kind of entertainment in some way, but making sure that you're keeping your alcohol consumption in check. That combination of fire and water tends to be a little indulgent in that area in some cases. And just like, you know, food being a source of fun and entertainment and play, exercise must be exactly the same. And so they're not going to do exercise that isn't fun for them. They're not going to do exercise that isn't entertaining. So finding something that is joyful for you, that is fun for you, that feels childlike and playful and exciting to you, and doing that. And even if it's not the same thing every time, but doing things every single day that move your body and get your blood and your circulation going and your muscles working, that are fun and exciting and just happy for you. That's going to be the best way for you to motivate yourself to stay active. So things like dance, if that's exciting to you, things that are more playful, go to like a bounce house or something, jump on a trampoline, do something that's childlike and that's, you know, exciting in some way, whatever that means for you. That's going to be the best for Pisces rising people and for that Leo energy. You do have a lot of energy to burn with that Leo 6th house on a day-to-day basis. And this is one of those signs with that Pisces that you might kind of get sucked into like laziness or escapism, or like not actually connecting with your body. That Leo energy needs it. You absolutely need motion and movement, and you need physical activity every single day. A stagnant Pisces, a sedentary Pisces is not a healthy Pisces rising, you guys. Pisces especially needs to move, and they might be prone to not moving unless they feel like it's going to be fun for them. And so you have to create ways to make it fun, or else your health is going to suffer. So you need to make sure that you're doing that. That is all 12 rising signs and all 12 6th house signs. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, you learned something from it, and if you did, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you never miss an important astrology update. I do new tutorials and forecasts every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, so you don't want to miss that. Like the video, share it with your friends if you feel like they could benefit from the information that I shared with you today, and check out these videos over here if you're interested in medical astrology. I have a playlist that I'm forming with some really interesting videos, and in the meantime, I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.